We are back with episode 2 of Badminton Myths.
We're going to take you through 3 badminton myths and the truths behind them. So myth number 1, and that's you've got to always have your racket up at the net.
And it's probably best to say that that's not necessarily wrong.
No.
It just could sometimes be a little misleading. And what we're going to discuss is it's how high you have your racket in relevance to where your opponent is making contact with that shot. Now, if we're having our racket up in this position, we're predominantly assuming that they're making contact with the shuttle below the tape. And the reason this is okay to have our racket here is their shot has to travel in an upwards trajectory to hit the shuttle over. So this is very relevant. The problems that we see, David, is when maybe the shuttle's a little bit flatter and people have got ingrained in their brains so much they have to have their racket up, and actually the opponent's shot can now come flat. Now actually the time I bring my racket down to get that shot, I'm probably not going to hit a quality shot. I'm probably going to drag the racket down into the net. So my prep would feel like it's a little bit more level with the tape, which again covers the possible shot that can come back.
And I think even though if that shuttle's at a really steep angle and you want your racket nice and up because that's going to be coming up to you, it's still up but not straight armed up, which we sometimes see with players where their arms are really, really high because they've been told to get the racket up. It's actually getting your arms a bit more level so that racket's just above your head, so you're in a good position to then actually hit your shot, whereas if we're straight armed, we can't really hit the shot very well.
So a great exercise you can do to work on your racket position at the net is having a multi-feeder hitting multi-feed shuttles underarm, which means the shuttle will be on the rise so you can practice hitting high above the tape. And for the second exercise, the multi-feeder will now feed shuttles from a flat position, which means you have to get your racket in a lower position, more level with the tape.
So myth number 2, and this one is going around the head is always better.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, we are massive believers of going around the head. It gets you in a far better position to hit high quality shots. The trouble comes in when people sort of take it as law. I've got to go around the head in this corner all times. And what we end up seeing is this lean out right to the side, contacting the shuttle way out to their round the head side, and in this awful position where our body weight's all over the place and we can't actually hit a good shot. Where actually there's this fine line between a good round the head shot and actually you might as well take a backhand and play a controlled backhand shot.
So David, why is it that we see people in this kind of exaggerated leaning position still trying to hit around the heads?
Well, I think number 1 is probably they're just not confident in their backhand. And I think sometimes we get told, oh, backhand's a bad shot, so people don't practice it, when actually it can be a really useful shot in certain situations where we're forced into that position. So a lot of the time people just don't practice it, get worried about it, so try and force the round the head. And the second one's probably because I think this obsession over I can hit better shots on my forehand. So they try and force this forehand position to this round the head and they're convinced they're going to hit a better shot, when actually they're in a really awkward position and a backhand which would have been a better choice.
And I guess we also probably have to mention the recovery of this shot. With their body weight leaning so far to one side, they're going to have a lot to sort out before they can recover to the next shot as well.
Definitely.
Now, a nice drill we can do to work on when to take around the head or a backhand is having our feeder feed different heights of lifts into our backhand corner, where you have to move from your base position and practice your decision making to ensure you hit the right shot from the right lift.
And our third and final myth is always hitting into space for singles.
Yeah, I mean, this is a slightly more complicated one in terms of, yes, you do want to move your opponent round into space. It's more when we're being too obvious consistently. If we're hitting in the direction our opponent's always moving, let's take an example. If they've hit maybe a short backhand clear and then the obvious shot is that cross smash, that's where the space is. But because that person's under pressure, that's the direction they're going to be sort of running in, and actually it's an easy almost return for them. Whereas if you go back down the line where they've come from, 1, their momentum's going that way, but 2, it's the less obvious shot and actually more likely to be a winner.
And this may be particularly useful against people that are naturally quite fast. And as you said, David, yes, there is a gap when we're attacking, but actually is also aware of that as well, and then naturally coming across to cover that space.
And we're not saying always do this, but it's a bit of tactical awareness to catch your opponent out by adding variety and not playing the most obvious shot. Now for this, we don't actually have a set routine, but when you're doing your match play, really try and be tactically aware of the direction your opponent's moving in and not being too obvious with your shots.
So we hope you enjoyed episode 2 of our Badminton Myths series.
If you like this content and want to see more of it, please hit the like and subscribe button and head over to our Instagram and give us a follow.